Good afternoon. Welcome to the FTD University webinar titled Profitability Starts with Educated Buying. Today, you will learn how being well educated in your buying habits will help you to maximize your profit potential. FTD Education Consultant Randy Wooten, AIFD, will be leading this informative webinar. With nearly 2 decades of experience in the floral industry, Randy is the 4th generation owner and lead designer at Dolores' Florist in Douglas, Georgia. He has received multiple awards throughout his career, including the Georgia State Florist Association's 2012 Retailer of the Year Award. Randy's passion for the floral industry is deeply rooted in education, as evidenced by his work the past few years with the National FFA organization. Once Randy is finished with his presentation, we will open the webinar up for questions. If you have a question, simply type it in that question box that's on the upper right side of your screen. Feel free to submit your questions during the presentation, and we'll hold them until the Q&A portion of the webinar. So without further ado, I want to turn the call over to Randy to begin the webinar. Randy?
Thank you, Janet. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to everyone who is joining us today. It means a lot. Thanks to FTD and Janet and her team for giving me this opportunity to share. By being here today, it shows that you value education and the importance of furthering that education. And for me, education is the key to success. So thank you for being here. Today, I'm here to share some things with you that has been working and growing and profiting my shop. But at the same time, I don't have all the answers and I don't have a perfect shop. What I do is I have a passion for the industry. So at the end of this webinar, I would love for you to share your thoughts and maybe some things that have worked for you. And my email address is there and it will be at the end of the webinar as well. So let's just dive right into the topic today, and we're going to start with the word educated. And educated translates into being knowledgeable, well-read, informed, and intelligently aware. You know, for me, when I started the shop, one of the things that I asked myself is, do you know what your costs are? Do you know what your goods are? And I pose to you today, do you know what your cost of goods are? If not, is there someone in your shop who knows what those costs are? For me, if you were to ask me a particular price off the spot, I could tell you a current price of most any fresh product that we have in the shop. Now, my mom, she handles the hard goods, and she can pretty much quote stuff to you off her head. And so I encourage you, if you don't know, one thing to keep in mind is after we're done today is maybe that hopefully I've shared some information that's going to make you more engaged to know more about what you're paying on a daily basis. One of my colleagues shared with me early on, I believe it was in the 2nd year that I was in business, and at first it didn't register, but then she repeated it again to me and even a 3rd time, and it finally clicked for me. You make money off what you buy, not what you sell. And I'll repeat that again. You make money off what you buy, not on what you sell. And for me, I was like, okay, hold on. This makes total sense. The amount of profit that I make off of a given item is determined by what I paid for that item or what my cost is that I have in that item. And it makes perfect sense for me. And it has been something that I use every single day. I quote it when I'm out on the road and on the stage, in workshops, and even when I'm at market or I'm buying something, that's the first thing that clicks in my mind. You make money off what you buy, not what you sell. So moving forward, what are the key components of educated buying? Where do we begin? And I do believe those components are as follows. Always know what your cost of goods are. Know your pricing and your threshold, your market threshold. Research staple products. Cultivate strong partnerships with your partners and vendors. Find and secure standing order discounts. Take advantage of promotions and sales. And we're going to talk about each one of those in greater detail. But before we do, I want to give you a little bit of backstory about my journey that led me to educated buying, in hopes that you can understand where I'm coming from and why and how this has played a huge part of the foundation of my business. I purchased the shop from my grandmother 17 years ago, and when I did so, I knew nothing about owning a shop. I knew nothing about the floral industry, where to purchase those products, pricing of those products, the cost of those products, and I also didn't have a surplus of capital in the bank. You know, that's something that's very crucial, and I learned early on that that was something that I had to adapt to, and I conducted tons of research. And one of the things that I did was I noticed that my grandmother, she would, when she called and ordered something, she never asked for a price, and I often wondered why. And for me, I had to ask for price because, like I said, I didn't have the surplus of capital in the bank, so it was very important for me to save every dollar that I had. And the previous job that I had was in business, and I was a director of operations for a communication company, so I had a little bit of business background, and I brought that with me. And I learned quickly that because of my lack of experience and knowledge of the industry, I needed to better understand the profit margins and where and how to grow them. And my first place that I went to was knowing my cost of goods. We know that's where it starts. And I felt myself at a loss, and I kept wondering how does anyone make sense of this? And for me, I started doing research, and I began to look at the statements that my grandmother had and the statements that I started obtaining, and trying to figure out if there was a way to save money. Always know what you're paying for your cost of goods. Many times, some designers I've had a conversation with, and they would say, well, I know in my mind, I can add it up in my head. Well, if you don't truly know what you're paying for your cost, then you're not being effective, and that in turn, you're not being profitable. You should make sure that your retail price is in line with your cost. I'm not here today to talk about a pricing formula. There's many out there on the website, and we'll touch a little more on that a little later, but you need to make sure that you're coming up with a retail price for that cost. Prices can change and maybe weeks before you're aware of it. For example, one day I just happened to look at an invoice, because I normally don't see them when deliveries are made, but one day I happened to look at an invoice, and my 54-inch easels had went up by $1. And I immediately got on the phone and called my supplier, and I said, hey, I noticed that the easels have went up $1. And they're like, yes, that happened about 4 weeks ago. And I had purchased easels 3 different times during that month and was not aware that the price had gone up. Therefore, I had not adjusted my price. And so we have to keep in mind that as those prices go up, we need to adjust ours on the other end. And if you're not staying on top of it, stuff like that will slide through, and who knows how long you're continuing with the old price. So remember, as cost goes up, our retail price should go up as well. So one of the ways that helped me was I pulled invoices. And then I created a master list of my goods. I took it just very informal on a legal sheet of paper and listed every cost, every hard goods. I started with my hard goods. Every hard goods that I would purchase, my oases, my easels, containers, so forth and so on. And I made a list, and I put the price down beside it. And then I determined what that retail price should be, and I compared it to what I was currently charging. And I encourage you to do that. And I'm almost positive you're going to be surprised that you are undercharging for those. In many cases, that will be the case than the other, because prices change daily, weekly. Sometimes you'll just pick up the phone and call and order Sahara roses for a wedding and you just ordered them 2 months ago, and then they come in, instead of being 99 cents, they're $1.60. So that kind of thing happens, and we need to be aware of it. Talking about pricing and threshold, market thresholds. Like I mentioned earlier, it's not my place to tell you what formula you should be using. It's not my place to tell you how to calculate your cost of goods and get that retail price, because everyone's overhead is different. I do believe there's a fundamental formula that we all should be using, and I'm just going to say that you should be using some type of formula. SAF is a wonderful resource tool to find that information. So I encourage you, if you're not using some kind of pricing formula, please do so. Market threshold. Many people have asked me before, what do you mean when you say market price threshold, and how do you determine that? What that means for me, I use my POS system from FTD, the Mercury, and I will tell you straight up right now, it is a wonderful tool. If you don't have a POS system, you should consider it. It gives me so much valuable information that helps me with my pricing as well as my buying. It's a wonderful tool. But I can pull a report, and that report will tell me what my average sales are. It will tell me how many designs or items that I've sold in a particular code or price point. And so therefore I establish a market price threshold, and that is the price that everyone in the market will pay for an item. Prices that are above the threshold causes the market numbers to decrease. What that means is, for me in Douglas, Georgia, my market threshold for a fresh design is $50 to $55. Let's just break that down. That means that 90% of my market will spend up to that amount, meaning these designs appeal to the entire market. Meaning when I advertise or sell a particular design at 50 or 55, I know I'm going to hit pretty much everyone in my market. Anything above the 55 or higher on an everyday design, my market, the consumers that I would be catering to or marketing to, that pool shrinks, meaning there are less people that will be willing to purchase that particular price point. I hope everyone's following me on that. So with that being said, when we're stocking the cooler, say on a daily basis, we do heavy on the 50-55, and then we do a little moderate amounts on the, say, 75 to 100. And then also we'll do a lesser amount on the $35 to $45 range. And knowing your threshold market is very important. You may ask me why, and how does this relate to buying? The way it relates to buying is that it's important to know it because it aids you in knowing which products to buy heavy on and which products to go light on. For an example, if I'm doing a $50 or $55 arrangement, I'm not wanting to put a $7.99 retail value vase on that design. I'm wanting a vase that may be retail for $3.50 to $5. And so therefore, when I'm purchasing, maybe I want to buy a little heavier on those vases that would fit within that market threshold, and buy lighter on those that are more expensive. And it is important that you have those items that are above your threshold, because you are going to have those customers that will pay that higher price. So you do need to purchase those items. You just don't need to purchase as heavy on those items. I hope that makes sense for you. For me, we'll talk a little bit later and you'll understand my buying habits and buying containers in regards to my market threshold. So after I'd established my market threshold and I knew where my target was and I knew what price point of products that I needed to be going after, the next thing was researching the different products that were out there, and knowing where I could get my best deals. There's many items that we use on a daily basis that are pretty much standard. We stock them every day. As you can see on the slide there, some vases, bubble bowls, cages. There's many things. But what I encourage you to do is when you're researching it, you're going to reach out to your different vendors and you're going to price shop. You're going to compare prices from one vendor to the next vendor, and you're going to create a spreadsheet like the one you see here, where we've taken each different product and then we've created a column for each vendor, vendor number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. It's easier to put everything on one page so you can see it, and then also see if there's some kind of pattern between one vendor and the next. By putting it on paper, it creates a picture for you to see where the deals are to be had, who has the best pricing. But one thing you want to keep in mind, factor in every aspect of the cost of getting that item to your shop. Whether it's vendor 1 may be closer to you and their delivery fee may be $10. Vendor 2 may be, for example, for me in Atlanta, and I have to pay shipping from Atlanta, or either I have to drive 3 hours to go pick it up. Those costs need to be taken into consideration when comparing one vendor to the next. Okay, many times I can get things in Atlanta cheaper, but I have to factor in my time and my gas to go and pick it up and back. And a lot of times if you factor that in, even though your local vendor may be a little bit higher, it's still the better deal. And sometimes we forget that. We jump the gun and we're like, oh my gosh, you know, this vendor is $3 cheaper. But then by the time you factor in everything else, they're not necessarily cheaper, because for me, time is money, very much so. By putting it on a spreadsheet, you can look, just take a look at the one we have up. Some of them are very consistent. Some of them dip in price. And then sometimes you can see where one may have the best price on most of the items. And when you find that, that's when you want to open the line of communication to that vendor and start asking and negotiating. One thing it did for me by putting it on paper, it was an eye-opener. Like I talked to you about the easels earlier, I found that prices had changed. Sometimes we have in our mind, and you can quote that an easel cost me $6.50, and I can actually go pull an invoice and maybe it was $6.75 or $7. I encourage you, when you're ordering, always ask for a price. Never take it for granted, because what happens is we get burnt too many times. Some items you'll find on this list that you're paying too much compared to others. And then sometimes you'll find that some of the things you're already getting are already at a great deal, and you may need to change a vendor. It's very important in knowing this and staying on it. Like I said earlier, we're busy, and I get that. I'm busy every day, and that's why we split the responsibility between myself and my mom. She can quote me all day long, and she stays on top of our hard goods and supplies, and I stay on top of the fresh. And it seems to work. And I'm not saying we're perfect, because we can make mistakes from time to time. And there have been times that we have made those mistakes. And one of those is a pitfall that I want to share with you. And this is a perfect example of making sure that we're comparing apples to apples, and we're comparing unit pricing and not case pricing. Okay? You know, sometimes we get a price from one vendor to the next, and it may not always be the same. Case in point, Aquafoam Standard, Oasis Instant Deluxe. They are not the same. They're two different products. They're two different levels of grades of floral foam. But what's more important to that is one time we were called and said, Miss Delora, we have a really good deal on floral foam. And I think it had dropped, I want to say it was like $4 or $5 a box less. And they were running a special on it. And we didn't normally buy our floral foam from them. We were getting it from another vendor. And Mom's like, oh, absolutely. And she got 10 cases. And when it came in, the first thing I noticed, instead of being 48 bricks, which is the normal packing on a case of floral foam, it was 36 bricks. And by the time we calculated the unit price, the per brick price, it was not a good deal. It was about the same as what we were paying. So you have to be very mindful. Like you see on your screen here, vendor A had a box for $36.45, 48 bricks. Vendor B, $29.99, but there's only 36 bricks. Vendor C, $32.99, 48 bricks. And when you break it down per brick, you can actually see vendor C is cheaper per brick. But then we got to factor in those other costs that it is required to get it to our shop. And vendor A delivers to me, their local, $10 delivery fee. Vendor B is free shipping on 3 or more cases. And then C was standard ground cost. So in the end, it comes down to vendor B was 83 and vendor A was 97, and it's the better deal for me, even though it's 14 cents more per brick, but I can even shave that cost off even more by using that local wholesaler and spreading that delivery fee of $10 among multiple items on that same delivery. I hope you follow me on that. That $10 fee is for that one delivery, and then when you order multiple items, then that fee is spread out. So for me, vendor A would be the better deal, and that's where it comes down to comparing apples to apples and unit price, not case price. Many have asked, where do I research staple products? How do I go about it? The first place is your local wholesale houses. Most of you are in contact with them on a daily basis. Pick up the phone, call your sales rep and say, hey, you know, I am trying to invest some time into my business to be more profitable. I'm doing a little bit of research here, and I'm trying to find out what all my costs are so I can better price and get more structured in my business. And they will appreciate that. And I'm sure by doing so, they see that sense of loyalty, which we'll talk about a little bit later, and they'll be on board to help you with that. The merchandise market. This has been a fabulous tool for me. As a retail shop, I don't spend a lot of money at the merchandise mart, but I use it as a tool for research. I research it not only for buying purposes, but also for trend and inspiration. So it's an excellent resource guide. Educational conventions and workshops. Now, folks, I can talk all day about this. Education is crucial, 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 crucial. Many times people will say to me, Randy, why do I need to go to that educational program? What am I going to get out of convention? Well, first and foremost, you're going to get out of it what you put in it. But the success of a visit to a convention or workshop is always based on the individual, and the results are always different. For me, if I go to a program or a convention and I come away with one tip that helps me in my buying or in my business, or I find a new vendor, or sitting around a dinner table, engaging in conversation with colleagues, and they share something with me, that's all about learning, and that's researching as well. And last, your colleagues, your friends. Pick up the phone one day and call up a colleague and say, hey, you got any good deals lately? Where are you getting XYZ? Have you found any good deals that you want to share? And also, when you get a good deal, you need to pick up the phone and you need to call that colleague and say, hey, I got a good deal. I don't know if you're interested in it or not. Share the wealth, as I like to put it sometimes. You know, sharing is growing. Like I said in the beginning, we're here to support one another. We're not in competition with one another. We're here to help one another. So now that we've done our research and our data has been obtained and we got our spreadsheet ready, what now? What do we do? Well, the first place we're going to do is we're going to cultivate these strong partnerships with our vendors. And by doing so, it helps to build that strong relationship, and it streamlines costs, and we organize our operations, and therefore it increases profitability. Now that you've compiled this information, we have the tools that are needed. This information is valuable to your vendors as well as to you. It gives them a snapshot of what your needs are. Explain to them that you're doing an internal evaluation and you're trying to streamline your cost to be more efficient. And by streamlining your cost, you find that one vendor that has a lot of the best prices of your items, and then the items that they don't have the best price on, you ask them to price match. Express your desire to have them as your one-stop shop for your business. We lost a vendor. The end of last summer, we lost a vendor, and we used them for a lot of our supplies. And we were kind of scrambling, trying to figure out what we were going to do. And one of the things that we did is we reached out to one of our vendors on one of the utility bases that we use every day, and told them what we were paying and explained our situation and asked them would they be open to matching that price. And they came back and actually they gave us a better price than the one that we were actually had before. And that opened up a line of conversation. There again, building that strong partnership, it opened up that line of conversation to say, hey, what are some of the things you're paying? What are some of the other items that you need, and what are you paying for them? And let me see if I can help you there. And it turned out to be a good thing. You know, we lost a vendor, but turned out it saved us money by simply opening up that line of communication with that other partner. It also helps build loyalty, and that strengthens that relationship. And by streamlining your cost with one vendor, it also organizes your operations, meaning you got less paperwork, less vendors to keep track of, and therefore saves you time, which not only increases profitability through your time saving, but also in what you pay for your product. One thing I like to tell people, and my mom has been, she has been a very instrumental in helping me with this. Always show your appreciation, be thankful. And as the term she uses on a daily basis here in the shop is be humble and kind. Remain professional during those difficult situations. There's always going to be a mix-up, bad product, something didn't come in like you ordered it. There's always going to be a situation. But what we have to keep in mind is that we have to always approach it from a business standpoint. We need to be understanding, remembering that you and that partner are a team. Because we're working on that relationship, just like you have a relationship with your partner, your spouse, or with an employee relationship. We have a relationship with that vendor. And even in the worst situations, we should always remain calm, as Mom says, humble and kind, and approach it from a business standpoint. And always know that if they failed that time, it's okay. Let's move past it. As long as they make it good, we got to be flexible, because you never want to burn a bridge. Many times I have had a wholesaler one time call me up and say, Randy, what can I do to get your business? And I told him the problem I was having. They were sending me old product that had been still in dry packed in a box over a week or longer. And I just said, if you want my Valentine business, this is when I want my product. I need it to come on this truck, and I want it delivered to me on this day. And when it came in for Valentine's, supposed to be in on February the 9th, when they brought the boxes in, they were still strapped from the farm, and the boxing label said they arrived on January the 26th. I was livid. I was upset. I was fuming. It's a major holiday. And in that moment, it's like Mom said, you got to cool down and you got to move on, but you never want to burn that bridge. Now, granted, he came and picked up his flowers and I had to order from someone else, put me in a bind. I was never rude to them. I was never ugly. Many times I've heard colleagues say, I've told people never to step foot back in my shop. I never do that, because you never burn that bridge, because there may come a time when you're in a bind and none of your other vendors can help you, and you want to make sure you have that door open to that other one. So that's part of maintaining a strong partnership. Sometimes you have to bite your tongue and move on. Another thing that's been very beneficial to me is standing orders. And we've been doing standing orders, oh Lord, probably since, I think it was 2004 or 2005. And for me, when I was approached about standing orders back in the day, being from a small town, I was like, I don't think standing orders are for me, because, you know, I can't take a whole box of something. And I was very scared, would not even venture out into standing orders. I didn't want that commitment because I wasn't sure that I could sell it. But I ran into a lady, Miss Eleanor. She worked for Transfloral at that time, and she shared with me, she said, Randy, I'm just going to break it down for you. I said, okay, do it. You know, sometimes we have to get elementary with one another, and I tell people all the time, you got to break it down to the money. And after talking with her and what she shared with me, I learned quickly that I could do standing orders. And I'm telling you today, if I'm in a small town and I can do it, you can do it too. And this is what she told me. She told me, Randy, I can sell you a box of 100 stems of roses, and I'm just throwing out numbers here, for 59 cents. For 100 roses, that's $59 for the box. Your current price from your local wholesaler, if you bought one bunch, is $1.05, which translates into $26.25 for 25 stems. So here's the reality, and this was where it hit home for me. She said, Randy, if you sold 1 dozen of roses for $75, then you have covered the cost of the whole box of 100 roses. You haven't made any money, okay? You didn't make any money, but you covered the cost of the roses, and anything you sell after that 1 dozen is money. And if you throw them away and you don't sell them, then you haven't lost any money. And for me, I was like, you know what? Why didn't I think of this? How elementary is this? And so from that point, we started experimenting with standing orders. And you can see there what a savings that was on those roses. So then after we tried roses for a little bit, we bumped our standing order up to 3 boxes. And this is where it got very interesting to me, because I was, you know, on a daily basis, you pick up the phone, you call your local wholesaler and you say, okay, send me 1 bunch of this, 1 bunch of that, 1 bunch of this, 2 of that, and so forth and so on. And then when they arrive and the invoice comes in, you've spent $300 or $400 on some flowers. And then you look at standing orders and what you could have got in relations to dollar amount and the number of stems, and it was a no-brainer for me. And I like to purchase things that hold really well in my cooler because I'm in a small town. So therefore, things need to last longer. But you can see by doing a standing order, the price difference on the hydrangeas there from $1.75 to $1.10. Gerbers, $1.10 to 69 cents. Tulips, 95 cents to 49 cents. Big drop. So by getting those on standing order for all 3 boxes was a total of $107. If I had bought the same product at regular price, not on a standing order price, it was $184. You can see the savings there. And for me, that's where we make money. Remember, you're making money off what you sell. I mean, you're making money off what you buy, not what you sell. See, I get myself confused sometimes on that. But by doing those standing orders, you got huge savings. I mean, by buying those 1 or 2 things, and I would look at my buckets in the floor and I would say, oh my gosh, all this costs $400? And then the next day, my standing order comes in and I'm like, look at all these flowers that I got for the same amount of money. It was almost double the amount of product for the same amount of money. So I encourage you to do standing orders, buy by the box. Don't be afraid. It saves you time and stress on ordering. A standing order is an automatic thing. It comes every week or every other week. Sometimes people think that standing orders are just for weekly stuff. No, most places will do an every other week standing order for you. It increases your profitability. You saw the savings. And what I really like is that most of my standing orders get doubled at a holiday time at the same price. So when it comes Valentine's Day, whatever my standing order is, they will double it at that same price. Christmas, they do the same. Mother's Day, they'll do the same. And by doing so, you're building these strong relationships with these partners, but more importantly, you're promoting consistency of your quality because they're coming from the same farm, the quality's consistent, and you're doing it every week, and they know you're a repeat customer. And if there is an issue with quality, they're more eager to work with you to get that fixed. Tips on ensuring success with it. Base your retail pricing on regular cost, not your standing order cost. Many florists disagree with me on this. It's like a mixed when we're polling people and asking about this. You know, there are some items that if the price is pretty consistent throughout the year, I will base my retail cost, my retail price based on that cost. But most of the time, if I'm getting a rose for 59 cents, and if I run out of my standing order roses and I have to purchase a pack of roses from a local vendor at a higher price in between shipments, then you don't need to take a hit on it. So to keep it consistent across the board, I try to base my retail pricing on what the market price is going if I were just buying one bunch versus a standing order price. I hope you understand that. I told you earlier, I choose items that have long shelf life. Hydrangeas are really good at that. Gerbers, we put a little bit of rubbing alcohol in our water. Tulips as well, and they both last. I can hold Gerbers for 2.5 weeks in the cooler if needed. Also, when you're planning an event, this has been very, very helpful for me, and this is where I have made myself some money. When someone comes in and they are planning an event and they're not flower specific, this is where you sell them. Keep in mind, okay, they have a certain color palette and a certain look, and in the back of your mind, you're thinking, okay, I have a standing order of hydrangeas coming, tulips, roses, so forth and so on. Try to incorporate those standing order products into that quote, because that also is a way to save money. You've already got that product coming in. There's no need to buy additional product. And that helps you on overstocking your cooler. And create specials during the slow times. I mean, during the summer, the standing orders still come, but we'll do a cash and carry promotion to help move it along, or we'll discount roses by the dozen to move that product. Don't be afraid to do that during your slow times. Now, this is where I get real excited. Now, we all love a good deal. Sales and promotions. There's different kinds. There's price breaks and deals with free shipping. These two normally are based on quantity. If you get a certain amount, then you get a price break. There's closeouts, which everybody loves a deal. Prices that are really slashed, and this is where your profits really soar. Finding out those sales and promotions is by networking. You heard me say earlier, ask your colleagues to share this information on deals. It's important. And if you share a deal to them, then they're going to be more forthcoming and sharing one with you when one comes their way. Read emails, folks. I know. We all get tons of emails every day. And at night or in the morning, if you're like me, you're sitting there scrolling through these emails and you see all these companies sending you promotions. And for the longest, I would just delete them and go on about my business. Until one day I opened one, and Lord have mercy, did it open up all kind of bargains for me. So don't delete those emails. Request to be on email list. Reach out to your vendors and ask them, do you have an email list? Do you do promotions? Ask your partners, did I miss a promotion? What's your sales? Always ask. One of my wholesalers started selling a new product, and I didn't know anything about it. And I happened to pop in one day to pick up something, and I'm like, oh my gosh, when did you get this? They're like, oh, we've had it for 4 or 5 weeks. You need to ask, do they have any new products, any promotions? Create notifications and alerts on your phone. Like with FTD, they'll have these sales, and they'll say, we're going to have a sale on this date at this time. I put an alarm on my phone so that I know when it's going off, because I don't want to miss out on it. And always be ready and be open to how that promotion could save and make you money. A colleague shared with me about a discount in Atlanta at the market. And back in the day when I really did a lot of purchasing at the market, this was one of the best things that was able to save me a lot of money. There was a vendor that they located in the market, and actually there were two. And they said, Randy, we have these two vendors we use in the Atlanta Merchandise Mart that offers big discounts based on the dollar amount that you spend with them. And they said they have a $2,000 order yields a 20% off, a $5,000 order yields a 50% off. And I thought, Lord, that won't ever apply to me. I mean, $5,000 spending with one vendor? No way. But what I learned quickly was that I went to market and I went around and I created my themes and my looks and figured out what themes and looks that I wanted to purchase. And then I went back to that vendor and I tried to buy as much as possible within their showroom to fill those themes and looks that I was trying to achieve. And for 4 years, I was able to do that. And you say, Randy, you were concerned about $5,000. I ended up coming out there many times with $8,000 and $10,000 orders, and I got 50% off. And what that meant was the bulk of my holiday purchase at the merchandise mart came from 1 to 2 vendors, and it saved me that money. And then I was able to come back home and really have some really good pricings and make more profit off my sales. There again, you make money off what you sell, not what you buy. So it's always good to know about those deals. Ask the colleagues, ask your friends, how often do you shop at the market? Is there vendors that you use to help find those discounts? Price break promotions. I have a vendor that I use that they sell an each price, a box price, and a case price. Sometimes items, you buy 1 at one price, you buy 6, you get a price break. and looking on the screen, you say, Randy, it's only 5%. 5% is a big deal. Everywhere you can save money, that translates into more profit in your pocket. So look at items. For example, this particular company that I use, there's some staple items that I use every day, year round, not just at holiday time. For me to buy in bulk and something that I can use, then it saves me money. The long needle pine in South Georgia, we do a lot of rustic natural designs, not only for every day, but with sympathy work. And being that I'm allergic to pine, this works beautifully for me because it's very lifelike, very realistic, great quality, and I buy it by the bulk at $1.05. And you're looking at that and you're saying, Randy, that's 432 pieces. Yes, it is. And that's an investment because I will use that. I only have to buy that like once a year and a half or something, and it goes a long ways, but I'm saving money, and it's on items. Ribbon, the same thing, especially at holiday times. Buying in multiple pieces gives you that price break. But now closeouts, that's what I'm talking about. And this is what I was so excited about. FTD has these emails that go out that I told you that one day I happened to just open one, and it happened to be an email from my marketplace girl, shout out to Brenda Blair, and it was advertising containers 87% off and free shipping. And I'm like, okay, I'm sitting on the couch just scanning, trying to see, you know, what they had going on and how big of a deal was it. And to my surprise, it was a really good deal. Look what I did. You can see there, that was just one shipment of like 20-something boxes. And since November, I think we have got in over 100 cases of products spread out since last November. And I want to just share with you some of those deals. And you're probably thinking, my gosh, Randy, who has the money to sink into 100 cases? I don't. I run on a shoestring budget here. We're a small town shop. We're not big shops. But when you can get a container for 63 cents, when you can get a container for 97 cents and it's beautiful, it's heavy, oh my gosh, you're talking a case of 12 is less than $11. And the good thing about it is it can go on my clearinghouse statement and be broken down into 3 payments. There is a fee for that. However, this gives me that opportunity to take advantage of this while the deals are this good. I mean, the picture doesn't do that justice. That one was 97. This beautiful vase you can see there was 97 cents. Now this was, oh my gosh, y'all can tell I'm getting excited here. This one, the red vase, red swirl, was to die for. Regular $5.99, 87% off, was 78 cents. I hope some of you out there are saying hallelujah, amen to that, and took advantage of some of those. The one below it is a, I believe it's a Better Homes and Gardens container, the blue one, regular $6.49, 85% off, 97 cents. Absolutely stellar deals. Now, the other thing that I took advantage of is this utility rectangle vase. We use this as our low-end base arrangements, and they had it for 99 cents. And they had a program where you could do 4 pallets, and you could do 1 pallet a month or every other month. And we chose to do every other month, 15 cases of vases. So you're talking less than $200 per shipment. And we broke that down over 4 shipments every other month. You don't have to have money stockpiled up in the bank and just write a $2,000 check at one time. There are programs out here that help us in getting the product we need at a steal of a deal And that's where you need to be taking advantages of these closeouts. It is just amazing at the money that you can save. And I'm going to back up a slide or two. You can see the Christmas container right here. After I got all those other containers in, and I love that red swirl vase so much, I told Mom, I said, I've got to go back and order some Christmas containers because I don't want to use all those red vases at 78 cents for Christmas, and I want to save that red vase for Valentine's Day. And so we did. And so as it stands now, until the next promotion comes along, I think we're good on vases. But I always check my emails. It's a great place to look. So remember, you make money off what you buy, not what you sell, okay? I hope that resonates with you. You got to always know your cost of goods. You got to make sure you're pricing and knowing what that market threshold is, knowing where the 90% of your market will pay for a product, and then knowing how to buy accordingly. Buy heavy on those within the threshold and buying lighter on those that are above the threshold. Research your staple products. You can do that by contacting your local wholesalers and your vendors, networking with your colleagues. They are a wonderful source for that. Cultivating those strong partnerships. Once you build those partnerships, you got to cultivate them and keep them growing. And you've got to be, as Mom says, humble and kind. And remember that we're in this together. We're a team, and we have that relationship, and we got to constantly maintain and cultivate it. You need to find and secure standing order discounts. I can't encourage you enough to do that. And if you're not doing it, take a risk on that. It works out wonderful for us. And then take advantage of these promotions and sales. Don't delete those emails. I don't care how many you get, check those emails. That has been one of the highlights of the last 6 or 7 months for us because we've been so excited about taking advantage of this. It's like someone said to me one time, you have to work the system or the system will work you. So anytime you have that opportunity to take advantage of those promotions, do so. Ask questions. Don't always assume that your vendors are going to be forthcoming to you. You have to seek out that information, and they'll appreciate you for it. I mean, it just shows respect that you care about what you're doing and about your business, and you're eager to grow. And education, folks. Education. Profitability starts with educated buying. Education is the key. Like I told you earlier, I don't have all the answers. I don't have a perfect shop. I love what I do and I love sharing, and it all starts with education. Education leads to profitability, and profitability leads to success. And I do believe it all starts with buying, and we have to be educated to do that. I hope I've shared something with you. I know I ran a little long. That was beneficial. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Janet for questions. And again, thank you for sharing time with me.
Thank you, Randy, for sharing a lot of great information with everybody. So as Randy said, we're open for questions now. So if you have a question, type it in that question box. It's on the right side of your screen, the upper right side. Melissa had a question from earlier. She wanted some more information about how you found your market threshold.
Okay. I used my, my POS system, let me say that. That's where I got my information from. I have the Mercury system, and I did not know it at the time that I purchased it, that it came with free training in Chicago. And a couple years later, I took that training, and I came back and learned all this fabulous stuff and all these reports that the POS system would provide for me. And from those reports, I determined that the $50 to $55 range was what we sold the most of. And then anything above that, the number of items sold was less. And so for each category, if you will, like daily designs, the threshold is 50 to 55. For like a sympathy arrangement, the threshold is probably about 150. So you can see in each one of those categories, we have a different threshold, and that will vary from market to market. That's just what happens in my market. But my POS is where I got that information from. Thank you for the question.
All right. Thank you. Clay's question is rubbing alcohol. You mentioned that with adding that to the GURBS for longevity.
Absolutely. Anytime anyone shares a tip with you, you need to test it for yourself, okay? I like to say that up front. Many years ago, someone shared with me about tulips. I saw some tulips that were just standing straight up at attention, and the stems were very hard. And I asked, did they wire them? And they shared with me that in their bucket, their storage bucket, like you process and put them in the cooler, they put them in water with a cap full of rubbing alcohol into the water, the storage water. They didn't put any food preservative or anything of that nature, just the rubbing alcohol. And so I came back and I tried it, and they will literally stand straight up. And the stems will be very firm. The heads won't droop. Gerbers the same way. Just be very careful and mindful that I use it's the little, I don't know if it's a 2-gallon little black bucket, the short black floral buckets, and I put probably 4 inches, 3.5 to 4 inches of water in there, and then I put the cap full of water, rubbing alcohol. But it works.
Okay, we've got another question from Frank. He was asking, can you tell us what your target annual COGS % is?
I think it's somewhere in, it fluctuates, but somewhere between 28 to 30.
All right, we've got another question from Chrissy. Do you have any tips on preserving hydrangeas?
Preserving them? I do not. Now, as far as shelf life or vase life, we use alum. We cut the stem at a sharp slant, exposing as much as possible of the inside of the stem. We dip it in the powder alum and then into water. And then if we're using it in foam, I will cut it, give it a fresh cut, dip it in alum in the foam. But as far as preserving it, like drying it, preserving it, I have no clue on that one.
Okay, she might have been asking about, just the vase life.
Okay.
Reminder to everybody too, if you've got any questions, type it in that question box. We have a question from Linda, and you mentioned that you do shop at markets. She was curious as to which markets. Do you only attend one, Atlanta's close to you, or others? And then can you get good deals at market? I guess she was looking for a little more clarity.
Okay, absolutely. I shop Atlanta most of the time because that is the closest to me. But I have visited the Dallas market, and I have visited the Vegas market 3 times. They're all really great markets. For me personally, the Atlanta market seems to have a larger selection for me. And that's all. I can only speak for me. And in regards to, can you get good deals at market? Yes, you can. The one thing that works for me is, well, let me say this. I've been to market with other colleagues, and they walk into a showroom, and if they see something they like, they write an order. It may be $500, and then they'll walk to the next one, and if they see something they like, they write another order. I wish I had that luxury, but I don't. So for me, what I do is I spend at least 2 days walking the market, looking at trends, looking at themes, and I make notes as I go. And then at night in the hotel, I decide what I'm going to do, and then I go back and try to create those looks and themes within those showrooms that offer me the best discounts and deals. And it's a little more evolved process for me than most people, but being in the area that I am in and the lower market threshold price points, and there again that I don't have this surplus of capital sitting in the bank, that money's not an object type thing, then I take a little more time in my buying. And also remember, you make money off what you buy, not what you sell.
All right, looks like we've got one final question. Zach wanted to know, what do you feel is the most important component in your buying?
The most important would be research. Finding those deals, and staying on top of the pricing. I mean, pricing changes so quickly, and I have been victim so many times of not catching a price change at the time it changes, and I lose money or my profit line is decreased. So for me, it's researching, staying on top of those prices as they change.
Great. Thanks, Randy. That was the last question. So we just want to thank everybody for attending today's webinar. If you missed a portion, you want to watch it again, the replay will be available on the FTD Mercury Network Florist YouTube channel later this week. And then, as always, we'll send you a quick brief survey to gather your feedback on the webinar. Please, we ask you to just take a minute to help us improve future webinars and other education programs for you, our FTD member florists. Our next FTD webinar is scheduled for Tuesday, September 17th. FTD Senior Manager of Quality Assurance, Keith Harbison, AIFD, will share tips for implementing quality checks and standards to help drive customer satisfaction and loyalty in your shop. Registration is available at ftdia.com already, so please be sure to register as soon as possible. Reserve your spot. Again, Randy, thank you so much for sharing a lot of great information with everyone today on how to be a better educated buyer to help us increase our profit potential. This concludes FTD's webinar, Profitability Starts with Educated Buying. Thank you, everyone.